Hi there folks. In this video we're going to have a look at some 7.62 by 25mm Tokarev ammunition. This particular ammunition is Russian in origin and it is currently available on the Canadian market as of the time of recording of this video. And so we figured we'd pick up a box of this stuff and have a look at it and we'll see what it's like. And if I like it I might buy some more of it, maybe buy a case of it. But anyway, no big investment to just try out a box. So it comes in this plain cardboard box. You can see you have some Cyrillic markings on the top here. Count of 70 cartridges. This was probably intended for use in submachine guns, most likely. I will be using it in a Tokarev pistol to try it. And of course it's 70 rounds because the PPSH-41 uses a 71 round drum, so that would be a almost full drum for that. They also use 35 round box mags, so that would be 2 box mags. Anyway, let's have a look inside. You can see it's stapled in a couple of spots, but we've got a tab at one end so you can open it up without tearing the box apart. And I have not had this ammo out of the box yet, so let's see what it looks like. We've got some paper spacing in here between the rounds, probably to prevent them banging around and clinking and making noise when they're in a soldier's kit, and also to prevent damage. So we'll just get that out of the way. Now that we've got the box open, let's have a look at an individual cartridge. You can see that this is brass cased. We've got 3 little stab crimps here on the case neck to hold the bullet in place. We have a round nose full metal jacket bullet. Nice clean looking stuff, very shiny, very nice and tidy looking stuff. Our primer there that has a crimp around the edge of it to hold it in place. And there's our head stamp, which appears to be, I think that says 710/47, so I would assume 710 is the factory number and 47 is most likely the year of production. And a couple of stars on each side. So we've got a magnet here, and a magnet is attracted to the bullet jacket, so that would be a copper plated steel jacket most likely. And the cartridge case does not attract a magnet, so it does appear to be a brass cartridge case, which is kind of nice. Nothing really wrong with steel cased ammunition like this, but still kind of nicer to have brass. It's a little bit more slippery, it feeds better, and usually causes less problems. So anyway, good looking stuff to start with anyway. And of course the 7.62 Tokarev is a bottlenecked cartridge. Not a lot of bottlenecked cartridges made it into pistol use for militaries, but this is one of the most successful ones ever introduced. It is a derivative or evolution of the 7.63 by 25 Mauser. Pretty similar cartridge dimensionally, but loaded to higher velocities. So this cartridge is renowned for its ability to penetrate because of its high velocity and the relatively small diameter of the bullet. Anyway, we're going to pull some of this stuff apart to see what's inside it, and then later on we're going to chronograph it and shoot it for accuracy out of a TT-33 pistol. I've been busy with the impact bullet puller here, and I pulled apart 10 rounds of this ammo. I must say the bullets pulled out remarkably easily considering the age of the ammo. A lot of times you get kind of a bond between the bullet and the cartridge case caused by kind of a galvanometric action, and in this case they come out really easily, which is a nice sign. Anyway, we've got a bullet here in front of you. This is the flat-based round-nose bullet that these things are loaded with. And as I showed you earlier, a magnet will stick to it. This is a copper jacket with a steel jacket with a copper wash over the top of it. The copper is there to provide a little bit of rust resistance, and also it kind of improves the friction, reduces the friction a little bit when the bullet goes down the barrel, because a steel jacket on steel would be galling, and the copper does kind of help with that. Anyway, this is the older type of Tokarev bullet. It is actually a lead core. You will find in later production ammo a much longer bullet that weighs about the same but it will be back about 2 millimeters longer because it would be steel core. But this stuff was made, I think up until the early 1950s, the bullets were lead core, and then they switched to the steel cored bullet in, I think, 54 or 55, something like that. And anyway, this is the older style of bullet with the lead core. So anyway, I weighed 10 of the bullets. I got my little cheat sheet here, and there are the bullet weights in grains. And we have our highest weight bullet was 85.7, the lowest was 84.6, and that gave us an average of 85.3 grains with an extreme spread of 1.1 grains between the 10 bullets for a standard deviation of 0.3 of a grain. So that's pretty reasonable for a service type round that's primarily meant to be used in submachine guns and a little bit in pistols. Next up, we'll have a look at the bullet diameter. So we've got the measuring tools out here. Anyway, I've measured a bunch of these bullets, and they all seem to measure about 307.5 to 308, depending upon where exactly you measure the bullet. Of course, the stab crimping on them deforms them just a slight amount, but none of them measured any bigger than 308. So, like I said, most of them measure 307.5 to 308. So, a little smaller than you would probably expect, considering that the bore and groove dimensions of the Russian guns is 300 bore and 311 to 312 groove dimensions. So these are a little bit undersized, but that's as they were designed. And I have measured other Tokarev bullets before, and they usually measure about 308. Anyway, they seem to shoot pretty well, most of them, although I haven't tried this ammunition out yet. But they're a little smaller than you would expect, but that is the specification for this round. Next up, we're going to have a look at the propellant. And as you can see, the cases are quite full. The powder gets fluffed up a little bit when you dump it out, but basically the powder is slightly compressed in each of these loads, and when you put it back in, it comes up actually above the junction of the shoulder and the neck. Anyway, we'll dump that out into the scale pan so you can get a good look at it, and hopefully you can see that it's an extruded tubular type powder. And based upon the charge weight and some of the load data that you get for this cartridge, I would have to guess that this powder is very similar in burn rate to H4227 or IMR 4227, something in that speed range, although I'm not advocating using this powder charge with those powders for loading data, just making an approximate comparison. And because of course those are all extruded type powders as well. Anyway, so there's the powder, and it is in really good shape. There's no smell of deterioration off it. Anyway, the powder charges were very uniform, rather boringly so. There they are there, 9.9. We had two that were at 10 grains. We had a couple that were at 9.8, so our average is 9.9 grains with an extreme spread of 0.2 of a grain. I didn't bother doing the standard deviation on this because it's so small as to not be even worth mentioning. So very, very uniform powder measure charges, which is not surprising. The big factories seem to be very good at getting uniform powder charges in most ammo. Next item we're going to have a look at is the cartridge case. And earlier I showed you that a magnet does not stick to these. They are in fact brass. Now, during the Second World War, the Soviet Union produced vast quantities of this caliber of ammunition, and they did in fact actually make steel cartridge cases at that time frame. However, the production was apparently not quite as good a quality as the military would have liked, so after the war was over they switched and went back to making brass cartridge cases up until the 1950s, I believe, and they basically got rid of all their World War II production ammo because they didn't really trust it. So from the post-war period until the early mid-1950s, they went back to a brass cartridge case. These are really quite a good-looking cartridge case. I don't think the Russians had anything to be ashamed of with this quality of product. They look quite good. You can see that we've got a Burdad primer there. You can see the standard flat face there. Let's get some light inside the case here so I can show you. Let's see, hard to get everything lined up here. There we go. See, the inside of the case is still nice and shiny, which would tend to show that the powder has not broken down, because when powder breaks down it often will corrode the inside of the cartridge case, but these are still probably just as shiny as the day that they were made. You can see the two flash holes there on either side of the anvil dimple. So these are corrosive, of course, because Russian Soviet military ammo is loaded with corrosive primers, because it is a very reliable type of primer in cold weather, and it also stores extremely well. So that's what the cartridge case looks like, and I think we showed you the head stamp there earlier. One other thing, it looks like there's a mild crimp around the primer there to hold it in place, which would make sense if you're loading these for self-loading in full auto firearms. So anyway, just a matter of trivia along with all the other trivia. The case weighs 71.6 grains, including the unfired primer, and a whole complete loaded round of this ammo weighs 167.5 grains. So fairly light ammo. You could carry a fair bit of this when you consider that you know, that entire loaded cartridge weighs less than just a bullet for a 45 ACP. So that certainly adds to the portability and the ability of the soldier to carry much more ammo and the raw resources to make everything go further when it's lighter, smaller ammunition, which is kind of a big deal when they're making billions of rounds of ammunition. Alright, well that's enough blathering on about this ammo, and I think we've dissected it and examined it sufficiently. So what remains now is to go out and try some out at the range to see how it shoots. I think I'll save that for a separate video. Anyway, hopefully I get around to that pretty soon. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you later.